Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Dr. Joey interviews Christian business professionals just like you to discover their secrets for working faith positive in a negative world. Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett.
Hi, Faith Positive Nation. Dr. Joey Fawcett here with another outstanding episode of Faith Positive Radio. Man, I'm glad you're listening to this one because this one is all about us. That's right, us peoples and how we relate to each other. Specifically, how do we network together to get God's work done? I mean, have you ever met someone and there was that immediate connectedness and you shared things in common? There were likes and dislikes that you shared, but you also had a higher sense of purpose behind the conversation. You could just almost immediately sense that God was in that conversation, that the Holy Spirit had brought the two of you together. The resources were converging you didn't even know about, right? And that it was all for God's glory, but also for your purpose and satisfaction and things like that. It's an amazing thing when that happens. So what if I told you that there are secrets that you can learn in this podcast episode that will help you do that more consistently, more often, and therefore create a more fulfilling work life for yourself? What if I told you that the guy who's my guest today knows those secrets and is going to share some of them with you now, and also has written a book that if you listen to the end of this podcast, you're going to find out how to get it for free. Is that cool or what? Told you it's an outstanding episode of Faith Positive Radio. And it's not because of me, but it's because of my guest today, who is Paul Edwards. Paul is coming to us from Olympia, Washington today. So hello in Washington. Welcome to Faith Positive Radio, Paul Edwards.
Dr. Joey, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Man, what a pleasure. What a pleasure. So we've had experiences like that with people where we meet them and there's just this, well, the French would say, je ne sais quoi. There's something which defies description going on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've had that, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all the time.
Oh, do you really? All the time. So you're going to tell us the secrets of how we can have that all the time. What is one of the first relationships that you remember, Paul, in having that kind of experience, meeting someone and you just knew, hey, God ordained this moment?
Boy, there's been an awful lot of them now. One of the first ones that I would think of would be a mentor of mine who still lives here in the same town that I do, a gentleman by the name of Shimamoto. And Alan was he'd had a very, very successful career in the health insurance business, and I was in the property casualty insurance business at the time. And he became something of a mentor to me in a number of ways, but most especially, he really saw in me and told me that he saw in me the ability to project influence and to project and to network very dynamically, much more than the average person. And in a way, Joey, this is he was at the very I guess you would say pivotal inception moment of this book, because one day we were at a networking group and he saw me, just speaking towards the end of the group, and he said, why don't you do a seminar style presentation on how to network? And this is like 2014, 2015, and I had never done anything like that. And but I had nothing really holding me back, and I decided to do it.
Oh, sweet.
And I started giving this presentation to a lot of different groups that I went to. And as I kept doing it, and as I became authoritative in the local community about how to do it effectively, eventually when I exited, that's a euphemism, I got fired, but when
I understand, been there, done that.
But when I exited the insurance business, I decided, there's something to this, because I keep ending up in these rooms in front, talking to people I have no business talking to. I have no business being in front of these people. None. I have nothing qualifying me. I have no preceding reputation. They don't know who I am. They don't know anything about me, but here I am standing in front of them, talking to them, and they like me. And I said, there has to be something to that. It can't just be, okay, so I'm a likable guy. I'm happy to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
But why doesn't this happen? I mean, I know all kinds of people who are very likable. It doesn't happen to them. Why does it happen to me? What's so special about it? I don't think of myself as like some special God's gift to humanity. I'm like everybody else.
Yep. So that guy saw in you the ability to network and influence other people positively, spoke that truth into you, and then you began to believe it.
Correct. And I would say as for a seminal moment that altered the trajectory of where I was going, from being an insurance salesman to being an influential author and executive ghostwriter. That had to be one of the founding, if not the founding moment of it.
Wow. Well, what he did was he recognized in you God's divine design, that creative divine design. Say, hey, here's who I see you as, Paul Edwards. Now, what was your first reaction to him? I mean, I know later, obviously, you've written a book, Influencer Networking Secrets, right? I know you've written that book, and so you've leaned into that truth. But back then, when you first heard, hey, this is the divine design I see in you, what was your response?
It's a good question. It's a good thing you asked that, because actually he said it to me at a very low point in my journey in the kingdom.
Wow.
In my early 30s, I transitioned out of the military, which dominated my 20s, and got a degree in communications. And I thought I was going to go into broadcasting and radio. Everybody's telling me, right? You got this voice for radio.
You got a voice for radio. Unfortunately, you're a little too handsome to be on the radio, though. You need to have a face like mine to be on the radio. You would have been on TV, man.
Once again, discrimination rears its ugly head.
Yeah, I know. All the pretty people are on TV, right?
But, right in the middle of this, so I'm in the middle of transitioning out of the military, which took me 5 years. It took me 5 years to shed that skin. I also had become a father of 2 boys, not just one. We started with the one in 2008, but in 2010, my second was born. And so I'm raising 2 little kids. I'm getting adjusted to really being married full time and living around my wife for years at a time, and all the communication hurdles you have to overcome.
Because you're not in the military traveling anymore.
And, 2011 was the bottom of the recession. I'd flunked out of several jobs in a row and failed at an independent sales role. And I had to go and get a job selling insurance, which I had no connection to. I didn't come from an insurance family. I knew nothing about it. I just needed a job.
Wow.
And I concluded from all that, erroneously, that I was being passed over for the kingdom.
Wow. So it was like God didn't have a use for Paul Edwards.
I was angry and bitter.
Man.
And here comes this loving older man who sees in me what I've thought in myself is a useless gift that I can't capitalize on.
Oh my goodness.
And recommends a small but simple step that put me back on that path. Well, by this time, I was known for being, I already had the generosity thing in place. People knew me that way. And so I didn't feel like I could hold it in if I had useful information to share.
Right.
What I could even sense in little bits and pieces back then, now I see it clear as a bell. Then I could sense it in bits and pieces. I was like, okay, this is different. This is new. This is, I'm teaching stuff that goes well below the deck of insurance coverage, right? And people are responding to it. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do with all. I didn't know how to monetize it. I didn't even think of it. I just kept doing it, and it became a habit.
Wow.
So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, it does, man. And what an amazing answer. And my takeaway from that great story that you shared there, Paul Edwards, was that even in our lowest moments, the Father is with us, loving us. And your mentor was an angel sent by God to speak truth to you at an admittedly low point in your life. How cool is that? And we have that opportunity when we're networking with people, or we're influencing others, just to be sensitive to and aware of a couple of things. One, their situation, what's going on with them. But secondly, it takes a lot of courage to speak a word that the Holy Spirit's put in your mind and in your heart to say to somebody else. So just trusting the Father enough to step up into that word and speak that. Now, the great irony that I note in your story is here you were, a communications major, all about words, right? And God delivered you a word that really propelled you down this path of working with words. I absolutely love. I think God has a great sense of humor. So the irony and all that, it's not lost on me. That is beautiful. Okay, so words became the way that you started influencing people, but there's a whole relational dynamic that you're talking about here as a part of networking. How'd you uncover that in your divine design?
That was a product of a number of things. There is I don't know how this is everywhere else, but I'm in a region of the country where it is almost kind of hip and cool to be introverted and ignore people. And I don't fit in with that at all. I want to go out and have conversations with people.
That's right. That's why they're there, right? They're waiting to, like my yellow lab when we're out walking, right? He thinks everybody that walks by is sent there for him to lick or to speak to, right?
Yep, exactly. So, the first ever insurance job I had was dialing for dollars, and I did really well at it, but I hated it because I couldn't form relationships with people. The second job I got, correct. The second job I got, it was, I've never forgotten this. In fact, I talk about it in the book. My branch manager at the time sat me down after I got hired, and we're sitting in his office going over my marketing plan. And he says, I don't want to see you in this office most of the time. I said, what are you talking about? He said, this office operates on being involved and out there in the field. If you're here, you should be taking money and binding coverage and, maybe making a few phone calls and all that, but you should be out of here 80% of the time. And I didn't have all of that. I didn't have all of the answers to what that looked like at the beginning, but I took it to heart and I said, okay, well, I better find reasons to get out of the office. And
so you started playing golf.
Well, I started off, I found these, I found things like Rotary, I found things like Chamber of Commerce, and I found things like Multiple Listing Sales Association, which was all real estate and mortgage people, which is a great place for an insurance agent to form relationships.
Sure.
And it just sort of began to build from there. The first thing, it didn't take me long to figure out that nobody wanted to talk about insurance, because every time I brought it up, people sort of clammed up and started avoiding me.
Or they glaze over, oh, there's that guy.
There's that insurance salesman again.
Right.
So I was like, well, I have to find something to talk about, because I'm not, obviously they don't want, I'm not going to go and talk about myself all day. So what is bringing all these people to this same room together? Well, they're business people, they're professionals, they're some degree responsible for marketing and sales. So I said, okay, well then I'm going to teach people and share information that I know that is helpful for getting more customers, more leads, more opportunities, more prospects, and so forth and so on. And that's all I'm going to talk about. If they want to talk to me about insurance, fine, that's fair game, but I'm not talking to them about it.
Right.
And here's the funny part, Joey. Have you ever had the insurance salesman call you in the middle of dinner? Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, I'm sure it hasn't. Yeah. No, of course it has. Well, or at least it used to.
You get before caller ID.
Calls, right.
You get the call and you pick it up and I don't want to talk about insurance. Leave me alone,
Yeah, right.
Well, I go to this, this is a few years later now. I've been networking for a long time, and I get invited to this sporting event. This big client of mine, his son was in a mixed martial arts competition. So we're all sitting around watching. And he starts introducing me to everybody who's there, who are all in his entourage, all his friends and all that. And he says, this is my insurance agent, Paul. And I shake hands and how do you do? Nice to meet you and all that. And, the conversation ebbs and flows as the bell rings and the matches and all that.
Right.
And sure enough, a couple of them, unprovoked by me, I didn't say anything about this, but they start giving me a good-natured ribbing about insurance agents, right? And they start teasing me about all the, so you're gonna put the lines on us pretty soon and ask us about our life insurance.
They were steeling themselves to be resistant, right?
So I'm looking at this, right, and I'm like, yeah. I've got this. And they keep going at it, and eventually I said, look, I came out here. I don't want to talk about insurance. I came out here to enjoy myself.
I'm here for the fight.
I'm here for the sporting event. You guys want to talk about insurance? And they loved it. They all fell out laughing. We had a great time. Yeah, and that's when you've become magnetic.
Yeah. So it's unselling, right?
Yeah. It's magnetism.
That's amazing. Hey, Paul Edwards is my guest on Faith Positive Radio for this episode. And the name of his book is Influencer Networking Secrets. And we're going to tell you more about how you can get your free copy in just a minute. What you've reminded me of, Paul Edwards, is exactly what Jesus did. Mm-hmm. He did not hole up in the synagogue, right? And that's really what your manager is saying to you. Don't you hang out in here. You get out there and do that. I had an insurance agent friend of mine, done a ton of work with insurance agents through the years. And I said, man, you play a lot of golf, to one of my really good friends. He says, I can't sell any insurance sitting in the office.
Yeah.
So get out on the golf course. I'm like, okay. But you reminded me, Jesus, he wanted to distinguish himself from the typical synagogue teachers, right? Mm-hmm. And so where did he spend, was it 98, 99% of his time?
Out in the field.
Yeah, out in the field, which is exactly what you're saying. So, man, for your influencer hero would be Jesus himself then, wouldn't it, Paul?
It would. I was going to save this for later, but mm-hmm. there's a verse in Proverbs. I'd read over it hundreds of times and missed it. Oh, wow. And after doing all of this, I was sitting there reading one day, and it's Proverbs chapter 30, verse 28. And one of the comparisons, and I don't know if this is Agur, son of Jakeh, or if it's Solomon or whoever it is, but they say, a lizard can be caught with the hand, yet you find them in king's palaces. And you always have to remember, right? They're not literally talking about a lizard. It's the object of that statement is for you to draw a spiritual parallel. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, oh my goodness, I'm as vulnerable as anybody else, but I end up standing in king's palaces. Mm. I can be caught with the hand just like anybody else, but I can slip right past the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper doesn't even see me walk through. Mm. Gatekeeper turns around and says, where'd you come from?
Yeah. How'd you get by me? Yeah. And yet there you are, because God ordained for you to be present in that moment, just as your mentor spoken to you, to take a word to these people to bring that kingdom activity into existence, right?
Well, not only that, but I also know but I know generally the overarching preliminary steps that you do to build that bridge, that invisible bridge that goes right over the gatekeeper's head, and you come down the other side and you're in the courtyard.
Oh, now I know Influencer Networking Secrets, your book, gives us all of those secrets and all of those steps, but would you mind sharing one or two of these steps with our audience?
Yeah, I'm going to say that probably one of the most popular chapters in the book, the ones that grabs people's attention the most, is I call it How to Network with Dream Connections, and it's actually 5 sub-steps of a major theme. But basically what you're doing here is you're preparing yourself for the day that you are standing in front of somebody who is, a very well-recognized public figure.
Okay. And that's what you mean by dream connection. It's somebody with a lot of influence and a huge audience.
That's how you end up getting elevated. If you're presently playing in the small town leagues or whatever, right? And you feel like nothing wrong with the small town leagues, but that's run its course, right?
Right. And you want to go to that next level.
Right. Correct. And so what I tell people is the number one rule of this is focus on the farm team. And if you think about it, in professional sports, there's always a farm team of people trying to make it to the pros.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're not the only person who's doing this. You're not the only person who's trying to transcend your limits.
That's
However,
right.
the best way to end up in front of the big players is to do something positive, helpful, and uplifting, and adding your strength to somebody else's attempt to get in there, not your own. Okay. And as a practical example of this, right? I've been on, I have a podcast. I've been doing it for well over a year now, and I went on an interviewing rampage, and still am on one. It hasn't stopped. I interview and interview and interview and interview, and I just keep having conversations with people. And yes, I occasionally get a fairly well-recognized name on my show, but for the most part, they're not people that everybody knows, but they are people who share my desire to be known. And so I go on there and I say, well, every little bit helps. Every little bit of publicity, every other set of ears that you talk to is one more conversation, which leads to one more opportunity somewhere, as long as you do it. And so that's what I mean by focus on the farm team. And there's a couple other steps to that. The other thing I tell people is be an angler. And this refers to how you show up when you show up, because a lot of people show up. The last thing that you should be doing if you're in front of a dream connection, or even if you're not, but especially if you are, is trying to push whatever is on your agenda on them.
And man, that's so easy to do, to get in front of somebody and you get so excited and you just start talking about yourself and you got so much to share and so much value, and you just know how his or her audience would absolutely love what your book or whatever it is that you're sharing, product or service or anything like that. Man, you forget that you're talking to a person.
Correct.
Now you remind me of when Jesus was at the well with the Samaritan woman. He didn't, just download the whole kingdom to her. He started asking questions about her and listening to her. So what I'm trying to do, what I hear you saying, Paul Edwards, is that I want to add value to the other person and serve them.
Yes. And the way I characterize it is instead of going to a function or a fundraiser or wherever you meet these people, instead of going there to transact business, go there for business reasons.
Tell me what the difference is there.
It's a slight distinction, but it actually, there's a lot of things. You leave your cash register or your swipe card or your product at home.
Okay.
And you say, and you go in and you start asking intelligent questions. And as an example, one of the best questions I've ever developed, and I stole this from somebody else, it's not mine.
You mean you borrowed?
Yeah. I have three of them. I ask questions when I don't know the people, or even when I do. I say, what's going well for you? What's not going so well for you? And what are you looking forward to? And it's to frame people in a story context rather than in a singular moment. There's the couple of weeks or months leading up to this moment. There's what's happening right now, especially what's invisible that's happening right now that nobody else cares to ask about, but I do. And then there's what's yet to come, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden people are like, this guy cares not only about how I feel in this moment, but he also cares about how I felt yesterday, and he cares about what I think I'm going to feel like tomorrow.
Wow. So the first question is, what's going well?
What's going well for you?
Second question is, what's not going so well?
Correct.
And what's that third question?
What are you looking forward to?
What are you looking forward to? So what kind of response do you get from people when you ask them that, what's not going well?
That, I'm glad you asked that. That's the most powerful one. And the reason it is because you're actually asking people in a neutral setting, not a sales conversation, to share with you their pain points.
Yes.
Now, if this is your first time doing it, you might end up just serving temporarily as a therapist, and that's the best you can do. But after you've been networking for a while, when I ask that question and people start telling me all the things that they're unhappy about, or that are wrong with it, or they can't solve this problem and all that,
right,
my head starts sounding like a pinball machine, right? Bing, 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 bing,
Right.
bing, bing, bing. I know
Ah,
17 different people who can help you with that.
wow. That's
Right?
amazing. Right, 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 right. And
Or I
that's how
myself
so
can help
many
you with it.
that's how so many people got brought to Jesus. I'm remembering the story about the four guys that lifted the paralytic up on the roof and then lowered him. I'm
Hmm.
thinking about brothers introducing brothers, right, to
Hmm.
Jesus. I'm thinking
Philip
about
goes and finds Nathaniel. Yep.
exactly. Yep. And wow, and that's how a lot of people find Jesus. So what you do in that moment is in some ways more powerful than a therapist, but you're providing that referral source to a trusted therapist, if you would, or a
Correct.
trusted insert problem solver here,
Yep.
which really shows a genuine interest in them.
Yep.
So we're
And
back to
that's
Jesus methodology again, right? Putting the other person first. So,
correct.
so how is that helpful for you? And I don't want you to give the whole book Influencer Networking Secrets away here. But actually you are going to give it
But I
away and
am
you're going
giving
to
it
tell us
away.
how to
Yeah.
do that in just a minute. But yeah, so what does that do for your business? How does that grow your business?
I like to call it, I help people for free and I send God the bill.
Holy cow. Say that again, man. That's powerful.
I help people for free and I send God the bill.
And your father, who has a cattle on 1,000 hills, takes care of you.
It's not going to hurt his bank.
Man, I love the abundance mentality behind that. That is absolutely brilliant. I help people for free and I send God the bill. That's amazing. It takes a lot of trust to do that, though, to put other people ahead of yourself and to put people ahead, the transformation ahead of the transaction. Can I say it that way?
Absolutely. And of course, what people don't realize is that if you don't do this,
Mm-hmm.
in other words, if you continue to focus primarily on yourself,
Mm-hmm.
either way, your soul is listening to that.
Mm.
Even if you're not vocalizing it, your soul is listening to what you're thinking and it's saying, okay, this is the fundamental truth. We only care about number one. And that
Wow.
will influence your actions going forward. But if you start saying, no,
Mm.
no, soul, we are being generous.
Mm.
Doesn't matter what the personal risk is. It doesn't matter whether we get the income right away.
Mm.
We can trust our Father and we are
Mm.
going to be generous.
Mm.
The soul says, and the soul goes, okay. Right.
What is it? Jesus asked that question. What does it profit someone to gain the whole world and to lose what?
Your own soul.
Wow. So what you're doing is you're reorienting your very own soul to love God with everything you got and your neighbor as yourself.
But when your soul believes that,
yeah,
it's not going to worry. That's when the psalmist said, my soul is like a weaned child within me.
yeah.
It's because he was genuinely convinced God is going to look after me.
Mm. Mm.
He didn't just say it because it sounded cool. Right?
No, it was a confession. It was a testimony to God's abundant provision. Jehovah
He actually
Jireh,
meant it.
if you will. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Man, that is powerful. That is so powerful. And you're also reminding me of Dale Carnegie and How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? When he talked about, basically saying our favorite subject is ourselves. So
yes, we're interested in others when they are interested in us.
Yes. Man, I got to know more. Faith Positive Nation wants to know more. And you don't just talk about this, you actually do it. So you want to give us a free book, really?
I do, really.
Wow. So the name of the book is Influencer Networking Secrets. And you're going to give us a free copy just because you can, which is a beautiful thing. So tell us how we can get, Paul Edwards, your new book, because it just came out recently, right?
It's coming out in September,
right?
Which of course is now,
right.
if you're hearing this. And and yes, so you want to go to the Paul S as in Simon Edwards.com /Faith Positive Radio.
Okay. And that URL, in case you're walking the dog or something, that URL, I'm a big believer in walking dogs, Paul. So I have a dog who walks me every morning. So if you're doing that, just go to our website at getpositive.today and put in Paul Edwards in the search box and you'll bring up this very podcast. And on that page, you'll find that very URL. Give it to us one more time in case somebody is writing it down.
thepaulsedwards.com/Faith Positive Radio.
Okay, so when I go to that web address, what's going to happen? What am I going to see?
You're just going to get a nice, simple window with a picture of me on it and get your free copy, and you just got to enter your name and email there. And as soon as it comes out, we will be in contact with you to arrange having it shipped to your address.
Wonderful. That's amazing, man. The name of the book is Influencer Networking Secrets. So you can find out how to literally put other people ahead of yourself and prosper the way God wants you to. Because we do what? We take care of people for free and send the bill to our
Send God the
Father.
bill.
Right. I absolutely love that. So Faith Positive Nation always wants to know, and there's so many that are popping in my head right now for you. Faith Positive Nation always wants to know from our guest, Paul Edwards, about a favorite Bible verse or Bible passage. Yes, I said favorite. That's singular.
Yes, I received the proper briefing about this. And
yes, you did. So what is it?
The seminal verse for this book, and it is among my most favorites, just because it's so profoundly effective in my life, is Luke chapter 16, verse 9. Mm-hmm. And Jesus says, I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings.
Oh, wow. Say that again, man, because that's a mic drop verse right there.
I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings.
Wow.
I'll just share a little goal here to sort of illustrate that, Joey. But what really, where I really want to take this, is to get to a point where I am living off of 10% and tithing 90. Because I don't, if that threshold is reached, I don't need more than 10%. People on my team will, and I'll be happy to share some of it with them. People that I minister to directly, the ministry God's given me, they absolutely do, and I'll give it to them. But I don't need it. All it does is create anxiety in me. And so I'm happy for my business to earn that much, but it's not going to be staying in my bank account. Wow. May your tribe increase. Paul Edwards is the author of Influencer Networking Secrets. You can go to thepaulsedwards.com/Faith Positive Radio, and you can get your free copy of this book, which has just come out hot off the press. Morgan James Publishers and our friends David Hancock and others have done a great job of producing this book. It's an amazing book. You too will want to learn how you can help people for free and send God the bill, and God will take care of you. Influencer Networking Secrets. Look at Paul Edwards at our website at getpositive.today. And there you can, as I said, if you're out walking the dog, you can take care of clicking through and getting your free copy right there. Paul, thank you so much for the gift of this time, and just pray God's continued blessings on you, your amazing wife, and those two fun boys who keep you going, right? That's right. Thank you so much for having me. It's been our pleasure. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks for listening to Faith Positive Radio, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work, so you love God and others more. Suggest guests and ask questions when you email Dr. Joey at info@getpositive.today. And be sure to get your free gift of the 5 positive business conversations to have today coaching program at getpositive.today. Until next time, may God bless you with everything your heart can hope for and more than your mind can imagine.